Welcome to Faith at Work this evening. We're glad that you are here for our last installment of our series, Faith at Work, where we have had wonderful conversations, interviews with 8 different people, some staff, some of our church staff, as well as some of our church members. It has been a delightful journey where we have had conversations in a cemetery, in a doctor's office, in a schoolyard, in a memorial garden, out on a deck, in many different places, kind of where people are basically in their environment, in their space for their work. So it's been really a lot of fun for both Pastor Lauren and myself. And so we thought tonight what we would do for this last installment, which, by the way, in a couple of weeks, we're taking a couple of weeks break. And then on I believe it is the 2nd of December, that first Wednesday in December, we will be doing 3 Wednesday nights of Holden Evening Prayer as part of our Advent emphasis. So please join us then for Holden Evening Prayer beginning December 2nd. But what we wanted to do tonight was to conclude by having a conversation and concluding our Faith at Work with a conversation with Pastor Lauren herself, because this marks nearly a year in which she was called by the congregation to come here. They actually moved in the January time frame, but I thought it would be a wonderful way for us to be able to kind of just share some thoughts about how that has been for Pastor Lauren and for all of us as well. So maybe just to begin with, we can just kind of share just maybe some of your thoughts about this whole Faith at Work series and how it's been for you and kind of how it's maybe spoken to you for these past couple months.
Yeah, I love that we did this series. I think it was neat to both talk to staff. The questions were a little different with members out in the secular world and with members and staff members. But still, the things we gleaned were the same, which is that we have very faithful people, very committed people to living their faith in their work, even in the mundane tasks and in the joyous things, and their calling. It was neat to hear call stories, because we all have a call story. You don't have to just be a pastor or a servant of the church to have a call story. So the vocational call was cool to hear about.
Yeah, I think it was really great to lift up that whole sense of vocation, because I'm not sure we really talk about that. Sometimes we're too quick to maybe separate or compartmentalize the sacred from the secular when we see God at work in all of it. And it's really all probably sacred in the final analysis. So
right.
So yeah, it was fun to do, and it was your idea, and I'm glad that you came up with this idea, and we're very grateful to the people who have participated. So it's been really fun to have these conversations in just sort of a informal way, but hopefully it has been meaningful for you as you've gotten to know people a little bit different, as well as maybe thought about your own kind of vocational calling as well.
And that double meaning of faith at work, I loved that too.
Right.
That our faith in our workplace and our faith being put to work out in the world.
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of name that too. It was fun.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Pastor Lauren, for kind of being the capstone on this series here tonight. So needless to say, this has been an interesting year, a challenging year as you accepted a new call and as you came into this new call. So maybe just maybe a couple of reflections on this past year, what it's been like for you.
Yeah, we all can say that none of us knew. We think back to January and February and the way we were living our lives, even early March. I remember going to the women's retreat for just a portion of Saturday in the beginning of March. And I remember driving home from it. It was in Marble Falls. Driving home and listening to the radio and hearing the first case of COVID in Washington State. It had arrived in America. And this was a Saturday, and we were preparing for Sunday worship. I think you were out of town, and I was going to be leading by myself. And so I made the decision to share the piece just verbally and not, touching. I mean, think about that. We were still in person. We were all together. And the only change I made was that we wouldn't touch during the sharing of the peace.
Right.
And now look where we are.
Yeah.
So it's amazing for all of us to think back on what was that? What did that feel like to all be together? And then to have all of that stop. And all of a sudden we're just in our homes and separated. It's been a very unique time to start a call. That's what a lot of our pastoral colleagues and friends will say. That's the first thing they say. It's got to be a weird time to start a call. And it is, but I'm grateful that I didn't start in the midst of COVID.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I started before. Yeah. I got 6 weeks under my belt here and in the presence of people. And that gave me a little bit of a foundation from which to build.
Yeah. Well, you're such a high relational person, and that certainly is something that's really important to you, to build those relationships and things like that. So it must have been a little bit frustrating at times not to really feel like you could really dive into those relationship building kinds of activities and ministries in the way that you would just normally anticipate.
Normally do. And on a Sunday morning, that's our big morning as pastors. That's when we see everybody. That's when we check in. That's when we hear what's going on in people's lives.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I think the pastoral care piece has been a huge challenge for us to stay up with people and know what's going on in their lives. Right. Because all of a sudden, you realize, I haven't seen so-and-so for 6 weeks. And you would notice that sooner if you were in person.
Right.
And yes, the relationships, it's been a huge loss. I feel like at this point in normal times, I would feel more closely connected to people. However, I still feel that connection. It's just a little bit different, but I still feel it. And there was a time about 6 months in, it was on Father's Day, and we were in worship in the live stream in the sanctuary. And Larry Morgan was speaking about Father's Day, being a father and a grandfather. And I don't know what it was about Larry. I'm calling this out right now, but I had tears in my eyes. I got really misty-eyed. And it was a moment in my spirit as a pastor that I've noticed before in my life where I felt very connected to this place, where I felt these are my people. And that's a very momentous time for me. I have felt it everywhere. Mm-hmm. And to have that moment, even in the time of COVID, was really special.
Yeah.
So thanks, Larry, for offering that. But something about that, I was like, these are my people, and I love them. And yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So what have you as you've kind of reflected on this past year, what have you thought about in terms of your relationship with God? How has that impacted your relationship with God, with yourself, with the church, and how you see even the church going forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I have learned that God, while God is steady presence in our lives, God is also everywhere, not in the walls of a church building. And we always know that. I knew that. But to see what we've been able to accomplish and how we've been able to get the word out there, outside these walls, has been really fascinating, that God is not boxed in, and God is dynamic and creative. God gives us creativity, all the ways that we've been able to worship and to pivot on a dime to change things up. So it's taught me that God is with us and unchanging, and also very movable and not within our constraints. We can't restrain God.
Right.
Our family has felt very embraced by this community, and all of us will say we are so glad we're here. It's been a beautiful thing to come for me back home. Mm-hmm. This place, while I had many wonderful memories here from previous years, and I know I talk about that a lot, and it's probably annoying, but it's just that shows just how important this place is to me. Mm-hmm. I never would have imagined to come back. And so the way God worked to bring me back here, I feel like there's no other place I'd rather be living through COVID. No other people. These are my people.
Right.
And our family feels the same way. And people have reached out and sent my children birthday cards when they barely knew them. During when I have prayed for people, I've opened my eyes and they're praying for me. And I'm like, oh, we're still praying. They're praying for me. Mm-hmm. I've been prayed for so much here, and it's always taken me by surprise that people care for us as their pastors too.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's a blessing to be on the receiving end of it. And we're always tend to be more on the giving end sort of thing. Sometimes it takes us back a little bit.
Yeah, it surprises us.
Yeah. So I think what you're talking about is really important in the sense of the intentionality by which we stay connected with one another. And we've certainly seen that as well, even working together as a pastoral team, but also as a staff. And I think maybe, with the whole pandemic, and our response to it and our need to adapt to it, it's really, I think, made it so incumbent upon us to really, really find ways to stay connected with each other, and because there's so many workarounds that we always have to do, but how have you seen that kind of really happening within your own ministry within this last, especially the last 8 months?
The connections?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. In the very beginning, I remember we were really kind of scrambling to make sure, it was very important to me that lots of groups of people in the same kind of life stage had a Zoom meeting once a week. And so the first part of this pandemic in the spring into the beginning of summer was every night of my week was meeting with a different group. Moms of teens, moms of little ones, the little kids meeting for Kids Zoom. Almost every night was something. And that was really powerful and really, and what I've noticed in the pandemic is there have still been seasons for different things.
Right.
That was really important in the beginning. There were so many question marks about what was to come. So we knew we needed to gather somehow. So we quickly made this Shepherd of the Hills Zoom account, and we were able to get lots of different hosts and have many meetings going on at once. And then in the summer, we had a season of kind of stepping back from the weekly meetings and doing a little more relaxed connections, but still having those moments of connection. And we started in-person courtyard worship. That was kind of, right. I think that's when things turned for me. Was there was a huge shift in my psyche and my emotional health when we started seeing people in person. When Summer Moon Coffee Shop opened back up for me to sit outside and meet with somebody for coffee. I, like you said, Tom, I'm just so highly relational that the lack of that in person was really hard and has been for all of us. But finding those ways to gather anybody who can't, a grief group, we thought, hey, let's gather people who have lost someone and talk about that in this COVID time. Just being able to name some of those common experiences and have a Zoom session is good. The Ignite groups, wonderful. We started some more because we knew people needed to gather. So we have been really, I feel, I'm proud of the way that this church has worked hard to keep gathering somehow, just keep gathering.
Right. Well, it's been the joy of working with you, Pastor Lauren, is just to be able to bounce ideas off of each other, to be able to adapt to the environments that we're facing, and we need to constantly kind of be open, to that. So I appreciate that very much, and you've certainly have that kind of spirit, and it's a joy to share that with you.
Thank you. It's mutual.
So what have been the obstacles that, just some of the basic obstacles that you have faced in this last year, and how did you kind of work your way through those? I think.
I would say,
other than working with me, right?
Yes. If anybody can tell me how to work through that.
Right.
No, I am serious to throw it back at you, PT. This is a great working relationship, and I'm just grateful that God brought me here, because it's really fun to be creative. One thing I do want to say about this place and in working with you, the whole ethos of this church is, I call it's a yes place. have a crazy idea? Yeah, try it. Yes. There's permission giving. There's trust. Trust placed in us that we don't take lightly. And trust we have for these people. And so when you have that mutual trust, the people say, yes, try it. And if it flops, it flops. But we tried it. So creativity is alive here and vibrant. And I am the best pastor and the pastor God called me to be when I'm in a creative and thriving place. So I want to name that. I'm very grateful for that. And so some of the obstacles kind of come with that. You have to be extra creative in this time. Camp Hope, the Sunday school for kids. Okay, we were in the summer, fall was approaching. We were like, how are we going to do Sunday school?
Right.
And then we form this group of volunteers who are passionate about Sunday school for children and creative. And we just start meeting via Zoom. And before we know it, we're meeting weekly. And before we know it, we have ideas upon ideas, just a popcorn of ideas. And I have said that group is one of the highlights of my week because I'm more creative because of them. So I think that we bounce off and feed off of each other, and we need each other to help be creative because we're constantly shifting and changing.
Right.
We have to just be flexible.
Well, it's a great example. It's a great example of that with the children's ministry team that you've assembled now, of really changing a challenge into an opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think you mentioned the other day, that this is going to be something that even when we get out of this COVID times, that you want to see this continue in this kind of way, because it feels very grassroots then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We all love it, and we all have so many ideas that it's just then when a team forms and feels safe with one another, and ideas feel heard, and then they're used. You see it come to fruition, and kids are gathering. I mean, in the teens, it's usually anywhere from 12. It could be 18 kids who hop onto Camp Hope every week, and so kids are still experiencing faith formation during this time.
Right.
It's great.
Right. So what, as you kind of look into your crystal ball here, what excites you about the future at Shepherd of the Hills? What are some things that just energize you and you feel like is really something that's really going to happen and see happen, and you're excited to be a part of?
Yeah, I think I really enjoy. I've really enjoyed the midweek manna teaching a little bit more. I'd kind of forgotten how much I enjoyed that, and even more so when there are live people in front of me, and it's not just via Zoom. But that works too when I've taught Bible study on Sunday mornings here and there via Zoom. So I think I look forward to more teaching on topics and on Bible study, just being with people in that way. Worship planning here is really fun, and worship planning in the time of COVID is its own unique challenge. But as we move through COVID, we have no idea how long we'll be, doing it this way. But continuing to see all that's possible, I think that in some ways we've been forced to do things that sounded cool before, but now that we've had to do them, it's grown into this cool reality that we can't imagine not doing, like courtyard worship. So I think, and Solomon's porch being used so much for gatherings and meetings. So I look forward to continued creativity. That's been a big word for me right now. Continued teaching and gathering with people safely, and continuing to, I look forward to spending more time with the staff as we are able to be more in person, as that is safe to do. And because in some ways I feel like we haven't had a too many opportunities for the whole staff to be together in person.
Right.
But I love when we are. So taking advantage of those times here and there to be together safely is exciting.
So one of the questions I posed to you is to think about 3 words that would describe your faith at work, and maybe why you chose those words. So
yeah,
it's kind of fun to just kind of isolate it into three words.
Yeah. So I thought of presence, God's presence that has been so clear for us, and our own presence with each other, and being present to God. It's not only God being present for us, but us being present to what God might be calling out of us. Grace. I think we've all given each other a lot of grace. There were, most of the spring and summer, I had to work from home a lot, most of the time, because my kids were home. They were either doing school at home or they were home all summer. And there was such grace. I never felt, again, just to compare, I know plenty of people who have not received the same grace and love from their congregations. And I felt nothing but grace in terms from you and from the whole staff and our congregation, knowing that I needed to be mom. I needed to be home. And the fact that I could still I got all my work done. It may have been on me late at night and you early in the morning.
Right.
But we learned that we could still get everything done. It's not as enjoyable as it is when we're in the office together.
Right.
But I think giving each other grace. And then joy. Joy because I truly feel I'm doing what God has called me to do. And I feel so joyful when I'm being a pastor. And especially so here at Shepherd.
Great. Cool. I like those words. And I heard the word creativity a lot.
Yes, I said that a lot too. I know.
So that'd be
my fourth word.
That's right. Yeah. So, one of the ways that we've sort of ended these conversations of just asking the question, is there anything else? Because at times people have other things they want to add on to the conversation. So is there anything else that you would like to add at all? Or do you feel like you kind of covered what you would like to cover?
I think for all of us, whether we're in ministry or not, I think self-care has been a huge challenge. It's hard to take vacations these days, to take the time off, even to do a staycation, because in some ways the work is it's really 24/7 now.
Yeah. Things
constantly change. We're constantly moving in different directions, and there's always something. And this is a very busy place. I think we've stayed very busy even in COVID. That's a good thing. But I think just a reminder to myself and to others to take good care of ourselves. That's how we stay healthy and how we stay connected, and to encourage each other to, take that day or that couple hours and go be by yourself, or take that weekend and go be on vacation. That's another grace I experience here, is people asking, "Are you okay? Take care of yourself, Pastor Lauren." And that's really nice. So I encourage you too, Pastor Tom. We will take care of ourselves and encourage each other too. I think that's an important thing, especially right now. We can get really sucked. We get sucked into the emotional and mental drag,
right,
and the fatigue,
right,
of this virus.
Right. Yeah, we kind of float between excitement and exhaustion.
Yeah.
And because there's always more to do. There's never enough. It's always the case with ministry anyway, but it's especially exasperated.
It is.
At this time as well. So good words, good advice for yourself and for all of us as well. So, well, thanks for the conversation.
Yeah,
it's fun
thank
just
you.
to talk in this way and to kind of bring a close to this series, and we look forward to in the new year doing other things as well for our evenings, but we will be excited to do the Holden evening prayer for those 3 weeks in December on these Wednesday evenings as well. So,
yes.
all right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Lauren. Thank you all for joining us once again for this series and for being a part of it. And please feel free to share it with others as well. But we are delighted to be able to do this, and we thank Dave Wegner, Pastor Lauren's husband, who has been a big part of these Faith at Work, because he is the person behind the scenes, making sure that all of this goes off without a hitch. And so we're very grateful to Dave for this as well. So once again, thank you, and may God bless you. Stay well and be well in the Lord.